Welcome to the Urban Wine Club podcast. Pour a glass, sit back, and enjoy the show.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for another fantastic clip. Here we are going to talk about something I think this is something that I like, but I'm going to reserve my judgment until after the segment because I'm not 100% sure I know what I'm talking about. Today we are going to talk about tannins, okay? So I'm under the impression that I like tannins. I like tannins in my wine. I like the tannin, like bitterness. But again, I'm not sure what I'm talking about. So let me turn it over to the master himself, Foti Stamos. Hello, Foti.
Yasu Ari. Hello, Ari, I should say. But yeah, I mean, how often are you around a group of individuals, friends, family, and they're talking about the wine they're having, they're enjoying it, and they're talking about tannins, and how often do you feel lost? Like, what are tannins?
Yes.
What do you?
So let me just say real quick again, like when I never knew, and then when I started to learn more about tannins, I am under the impression that if a wine lies on a more tannin scale, a more tannin-y scale, I think I like that. I think, but I'm not 100% sure. So let's.
Okay. So let's first identify what tannins are. So tannins are a compound that's found in pretty much fruits and vegetables. They are found in mainly the skins and seeds of a fruit, and obviously in grapes. The tannins are found in the skins and seeds. It's a compound that has an astringent sensation. It's a compound that actually releases a lot of bitterness. So to give you the best example that I always like to tell people who ask me is, let's just take a grape with seeds, for example. And let's say that you actually eat the grape and you chew on the grape, but you end up actually chewing on the seeds, right?
Which I'm sure many people have done, and they get that like, whoa.
As soon as you crush those seeds, immediately you get this like coating of like
it's like poison.
That's what it feels like. Oh God, right? So you get this immediate release of bitterness. It's this oily compound that's released from the seeds that you'll get immediately. That creates this like almost mouth smacking bitterness that coats your whole mouth, and it's like cottony, and it's like how do I get this?
Yeah, and you almost feel like you need like to drink some water if it's like super tanniny, because everything's like getting like almost like it's constricted. Like I know exactly what you're talking about.
So that would be the best and easiest example to kind of give you an idea of what tannins are. So
we should let the audience know. You said that they're responsible for bitterness. So I've been full of tannins my whole life.
You've been tannic before drinking wine.
Very much so.
So tannins are important for several different reasons. They're not purposely put there to give you that sensation of like cottoniness in your mouth. But the compound has been, discovered to preserve the wine a lot better.
Okay.
And then B, it also is what is responsible for creating the structure in.
Okay.
Right? So every grape has different levels of this compound, and it also comes down to also the way that winemakers are using the grapes. So if you think about it, how many berries are attached to every cluster, to every vine. They come into the facility. Think about hundreds and thousands of little grapes being crushed.
Yeah.
Right. So they're crushing the seeds and they're squeezing the skins. So what's happening is all this compound is releasing tiny amounts of this oil into the wine. So it's getting into the wine, it's fermenting with the wine, and it's becoming a very vital component of the wine for creating that structure that's needed.
Well, dumb question, because I think I know the answer, but let me ask it anyway. Wineries making wine are very conscious of how much of the seed and skin the
Yeah.
tannins
Well,
from the seeds and skin is getting into that wine, or is that something they're not sure of? They just do it.
from the makeup of the grape, they can determine what depending on what grape they're using, what has higher levels of tannins. And I'll give you a quick example. Depending on the size of the grape and the ratio of grape size to grape size to seed size. Okay,
Yeah.
not to get too technical and geeky, but I'm going to give you two examples. We're gonna talk about the grape Merlot
Mm-hmm.
and the grape Cabernet Sauvignon. Okay, so you've had Merlot before.
Mm-hmm.
So Merlots tend to be wines from Merlot tend to be wines that have a lot of fruit. They're softer. They have a nice finish, softer finish. Cabernets have firmness. There's a lot more structure, and they have a drier finish. Okay, so let's go back to why that is. So when you actually visit a vineyard, and you're visiting a vineyard that's planted and growing Merlot, when you pick a berry from a vine cluster of grapes, Merlot grapes are rather large grapes, but have very small seeds in them.
Okay.
Because they have small seeds, they release small amounts of this compound for tannins. When you go to a vineyard that's planting Cabernet, the berries tend to be smaller and the seeds are larger. So they have larger seeds. So because they have larger seeds, the seeds release more of this oily compound into the wine that creates that structure.
Yeah.
So
Based on the question I asked you, like they're very conscious of what the grape consists of,
yeah,
how big the seeds, how small the seeds, how much tan is going to be released. So they are very conscious of what's going to happen.
yeah, they're fully aware of what's to come. So allows them to create their style of how they, their fermentation process, their aging process, and that will determine the outcome of the wine of how they want it to be. Now, the other great thing about wines with good amount of tannins is that wines can age for a long time, and with time they're better. But the drawback to that is that wines that have a higher presence of tannins are, in the very beginning when they're too young, there's not enough fruit because it's being masked from the tannins. But as that wine ages, it balances out. So the tannins get softer and the fruit is more prominent.
Okay.
When you drink wines that are too young with high presence of tannins, you get low fruit flavor, but high astringency. The wine is like very, tart.
So let me tell you an experience I had, and you tell me what's going on.
Make sure it's PG.
I had a wine once, and I remember this very distinctly because I drank maybe like 2 or 3 sips, and I literally was running for water because I felt like it was just so like everything was just so dry and like getting asphyxiated in a sense. And I was like, what is going on with this wine? I was drinking water. What is it?
Yeah, no, I'm saying that's pretty intense.
Oh yeah. This was like, I was like, what is up? I didn't know if I was having an allergic reaction, but as time passed, I'm thinking that this was just an overly tannic wine. Yeah. Maybe it was too early to be drinking it. Maybe.
Yeah. Here's the thing, there are wines that get released pretty early into the market, and for whatever reasons they do. But, for those that are in the industry that know that, it's good practice to let the consumer know that what the wine is going to be now, that maybe they should give it a little time.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of, well-made wines from France and Italy, Bordeaux, Burgundy, Piedmont, a lot of those wines need time, and they get rated, but sometimes they get rated on if you have it too early versus having it, when it matures. So then you'll see like on these recommendations of like this labeling of wines of when they're best to drink. And some of them have a projection of, drink this 5 years from now, 10 years from now to actually maximize the enjoyment of the wine. Because, like we mentioned before, wines with high levels of tannins, as they age, the softer those tannins get. So the softer the tannins, the more fruit you're going to get from the wine.
Yeah. And at that point, I was probably not drinking anything special or expensive. So it was probably some cheapo wine that just wasn't made very well.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's always bottle variations. There's also, wines that actually are just funky. and they're
Yeah,
just
it's possible.
a
Yeah.
bad batch. But
I'm telling you,
overall,
man, I thought I was having an allergic reaction. I was like, what is happening with this wine?
right. Um, and then again, for our listening audience that's intrigued by this, wines from the old world, and what does that mean? Pretty much wines from Europe have a nice presence of tannins in their productions to begin with, and wines from cooler areas, when you buy them, if you have the interest to buy bottles and just wait, give them some like time, like a year or 2 or 3 years. It's cool to buy, if you could ever do this. Buy a case of that one wine and then drink, if you could, one bottle every year of that box, and you can just see the change that happens every year.
That's a pretty fun and long-term project to have for yourself.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do that.
I've actually come across folks that are more and more into this. It's pretty cool to listen to the fact that they're willing to do something like that, which is, it's you got to just be into it, because I've heard folks that actually, and I'm guilty of it. I'll buy a case of wine that I want to like see what happens, and I get too like anxious, and I just scrap the project and drink the whole case
in one night.
No,
Well, I'll ask for your help if you could set me up with a couple, let's say 3, 4, 5, 6 wines of the same, and I will do the once a year. Actually, I'm never going to do that. I'm going to drink it all.
You know what? Screw it. We're not going to do it individually. What we're going to do is just light bulb went off. We're gonna put on a timeline for our folks, for our audience. We'll do that.
Yeah.
We'll choose a collection of wines and we'll drink them throughout the next X amount of years, and we'll record them, what they're like now and what they're like later.
Yes. And you have to keep the wines with you, or else they'll mysteriously disappear if I have them.
Nice.
But yeah, that's a good idea. I want to do that because I'm very curious myself as to how time really does. Like, they always say, like, and correct me if I'm wrong very quickly. Not all wines can age, but the wines that do age, they get better. Correct?
So the way I would say, to keep it simple, Ari, and this is debatable for different reasons, but the higher level of tannins in a wine, the better it ages.
Okay.
Lower levels of tannins don't age that long.
Interesting. Okay.
So that's the important component of age. They call the term age-worthy wines, and the reason why they're age-worthy is because they have good amount of tannins in the wine that lets the wine actually develop over time. That's important.
So in really good fine wines that you're gonna leave in your wine cellar to age, tannins play an important role, if I'm not mistaken from what you're saying.
They play a vital role, and they're so vital that so wines that are easy to drink, ready to drink, are wines that have other things going on with very little amounts of tannins that are just made purposely for you to drink immediately. And
probably with a lot of, pardon my French, a lot of crap in them.
Yeah, and we'll get into that on another segment. But the takeaway here is don't be afraid of tannins. They might be abrasive in the beginning, but they will grow on you over time. If a wine is too tannic, give it, that means that the wine should have been opened later on in time, which is okay. We live and learn. Tannins are important because they develop structure. And what I mean by structure, wines that are just like leave a certain element of sensation on your palate, like, there's acidity, there's tartness, there's dryness, but there's still fruit along the way. You want that. The opposite of that are wines that are considered flabby wines. There's like nothing, there's no tannins in there. They're just soft, easy to drink, and they roll off your palate very easy.
I like flabby ones. I think those would suit me.
Yeah, but you might like them, but you get bored of them too easy.
No, I know. For sure. Bored. Yeah, for sure. I feel like I'm I'm more on the. You say don't be afraid of tannins. I welcome them. I think. Well,
I'm glad you do. But for a lot of our newbies that are getting into wine, tannins can be offensive. They could be a turnoff. They could be confusing.
I believe it. I actually, if we were doing this segment 2 years ago, I would be on the get the hell away from me with those tannins.
Right. So that's the takeaway. We want this clip for our audience to understand what tannins are, and they should welcome tannins from this point on.
Absolutely. Welcome, Tannins. I've always been made fun of by everybody for liking all sorts of fruity, soft drinks and wines, everything very very smooth and soft. I'm the living proof that tannins they grow on you. It gives you that
change your world.
Yeah.
Excellent.
All right. Never be afraid of tannins. Unless your name is Marty McFly and his name is Biff Tannen. All right, I had to do the joke. Every time you say tannin, that's all I think about.
I love it.
All right. Thank you, Foti, once again, as always, for bringing that knowledge, bringing that expertise, teaching me. And, I appreciate it. And hopefully I never learn enough where you're not teaching me something. So thanks, everybody out there, for watching. Thank you, Foti, for teaching. And we'll see you next time. We're doing these clips all the time. We're going to be doing these clips all the time. Get the apps, get the websites, get social media, whatever. However you want to do it, just get on it. We'll be there. You'll see our shining faces, and we appreciate you guys watching. And until next time.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers. Nice orange wine, my friend.